Cornelius Vanderbilt is one of the richest people in history, with his wealth estimated to be more than $200 billion in current-day valuation. By the time of his death in 1877, historians believed that he owned more than 10% of all the total U.S. currency in circulation. Vanderbilt's reputation was marked by his rough and unrefined demeanor, which inspired fear in many who interacted with him. His relentless pursuit of retribution in any dispute discouraged anyone from challenging him. In this video, we'll dive into Vanderbilt's ruthless business dealings and examine firsthand his remarkable journey from humble beginnings to becoming the wealthiest person in the world. Cornelius Vanderbilt was born on May 27, 1794, in Staten Island, New York. His parents came from humble beginnings, working as farmers, and his father would make extra money on the side by ferrying produce between Staten Island and Manhattan. These early years played a pivotal role in shaping Vanderbilt's future. During his childhood, he dedicated long hours to his father's farm, instilling in him a strong work ethic from a young age. His father's stern approach to managing the family farm made formal education unappealing to young Cornelius. Consequently, he abandoned his schooling at the tender age of 11, opting to concentrate solely on farming and helping his father. By the age of 12, he had gained a firm understanding of the ferry business, aided by his mother's teachings on saving, borrowing, and collateral. At the age of 19, he ventured into the business world by purchasing his own boat using money that his parents gave him, marking the official commencement of his career on the water. During the same year, on December 19th, he married his first cousin, Sophia Johnson. Later in life, Vanderbilt's limited education would prove to be a significant disadvantage as he progressed in the business world. He never acquired proper English writing skills, but instead relied on phonetic spelling. This educational shortcoming continued to haunt Vanderbilt throughout his life. It not only caused him embarrassment, but also led to his exclusion from the social elite for many years. Over time, he made some efforts to address this issue, although he always detested the act of putting pen to paper. Even with almost no formal education, the self-taught Staten Islander used sheer will and determination to make millions in the marine and ferry trade. Amid the War of 1812, Vanderbilt secured a government contract responsible for transporting military provisions to forts and various construction projects situated in and around New York Harbor. Vanderbilt's unwavering focus on cost efficiency, frugality, customer satisfaction, and relentless competitive spirit led to a steady increase in his wealth. His assertiveness frequently drove his competitors out of business, and on occasion, they opted to pay him off simply to rid themselves of the competition. His typical strategy involved reducing prices to such an extent that his rivals were compelled to surrender. Often, he incurred short-term losses, but consistently emerged victorious in the long run. Over time, Vanderbilt accumulated substantial capital through various means, including direct cash savings, real estate investments, and interest earnings from loans. This financial security provided a strong foundation for his future endeavors and conquests. At the age of 23, on November 24, 1817, Vanderbilt assumed command of the steamboat Mouse. This vessel was owned by the prosperous Thomas Gibbons, who was renowned as one of the nation's most successful merchants. Steam power represented the future of transportation, eliminating the reliance on wind or currents to propel ships. During his tenure overseeing Gibbons' fleet, Vanderbilt refined both his nautical skills and business acumen. Tragedy struck on May 16, 1826, when Vanderbilt's long-standing mentor passed away, leaving the estate to his son, William Gibbons. Vanderbilt harbored a low opinion of William, whom he perceived as weak, a trait Vanderbilt despised. In early 1828, the emerging seafarer embarked on his independent venture by launching his own steamboat, the Citizen. This vessel measured 106 feet in length and weighed 145 tons. As Vanderbilt's wealth expanded, he established himself as a prominent figure within the maritime industry. He continued to acquire additional steamboats and displayed a remarkable knack for designing boats that prioritized both cost-effectiveness and speed. One of his personal clerks, Lambert Wardle, once observed, "He never had a debt and never bought anything on credit. He was exceedingly economic." By 1834, Vanderbilt's estimated net worth had reached $500,000. 6 years later, he proudly stepped into his newly acquired mansion on Staten Island. Up until the late 1840s, Vanderbilt had primarily focused on the transportation of both freight and passengers between New York and Boston, with a particular emphasis on the Long Island Sound route. However, a significant shift occurred with the onset of the California Gold Rush in 1849. This historic event attracted a massive influx of settlers to California, particularly to the then small town of San Francisco. A substantial number of European immigrants also journeyed westward, mainly by steamboat around Cape Horn. The surging demand for travel led to the emergence of numerous companies eager to cater to these needs, resulting in substantial investments in waterborne transportation. On April 19, 1849, an impressive total of 226 steamships departed from New York bound for California, carrying approximately 20,000 travelers. Besides passengers, the federal government also sought to facilitate mail transportation to and from the West Coast. The most practical means for achieving this was by utilizing ocean routes around South America's Cape Horn. Recognizing the significant financial opportunity at hand, Vanderbilt and a select group of partners believed that constructing a canal across Nicaragua would not only be feasible, but could also significantly reduce travel time. The ambitious undertaking was formally established as the American Atlantic and Pacific Ship Canal Company. However, it encountered numerous setbacks, including delays, negotiations, and political disputes. Vanderbilt's steamship, the Prometheus, eventually embarked on a trial run from New York to Greytown, Nicaragua. Upon reaching Greytown, both cargo and passengers were transferred to smaller vessels to complete the remainder of the inland journey. Vanderbilt personally accompanied this voyage, and upon his return to New York, became thoroughly convinced of the project's merits. The operation proved to be highly successful, and by the 1850s, Vanderbilt had solidified his reputation under the nickname the Commodore, a title typically reserved for the highest-ranking naval officers. Over the following decade, he continued to concentrate on his various maritime ventures. Driven by a strong sense of patriotism, Vanderbilt even made a significant contribution during the Civil War. On more than one occasion, he was offered prominent positions within President Abraham Lincoln's administration. However, his staunch aversion to the political arena led him to decline each offer. Vanderbilt's primary role in supporting the war effort involved leveraging his maritime expertise and generously donating his prized steamship, the impressive 5-decked Vanderbilt. This massive vessel had entered service on May 5, 1857, completing in transatlantic voyages. It distinguished itself not only by its size, but also its remarkable speed, reducing the duration of the New York to Liverpool journey from 18 days to a mere 9. Initially, the Navy rejected Vanderbilt's offer. However, a pivotal moment occurred when the Confederacy unveiled the ironclad CSS Virginia on March 8, 1862. In response to the new threat, President Lincoln and the War Department accepted the Vanderbilt. Although it never directly engaged the CSS Virginia, this colossal sidewheeler effectively prevented further devastation by the Confederate ironclad. In recognition of his valuable service to the country, Vanderbilt was honored with a special gold medal following a congressional resolution passed on January 28, 1864. While Vanderbilt's direct involvement with railroads didn't commence until he reached the age of 70, his connection to the industry had deep roots. His initial encounter with railroads dates back to November 8, 1833, when he ventured to South Amboy, New Jersey, to inspect the newly completed Camden and Amboy Railroad. During those early days, railroads were still considered somewhat of a novelty, but their significance was on the verge of becoming evident. In a daring decision that could have cost him his life, Vanderbilt rode the train that day, despite an unfortunate derailment along the way. Surprisingly, he harbored no lasting resentment toward this emerging mode of transportation. In fact, his curiosity and interest in it only grew. By the age of 70, Vanderbilt shifted his focus more intensely toward the railroad industry. He began by acquiring the New York, Harlem, and Hudson Line railroads, both of which ran alongside the Erie Canal. Vanderbilt then set his sights on the New York Central Railroad. In a ruthless maneuver during a harsh winter when the Erie Canal was frozen over, he strategically refused to accept Central's passengers or freight, effectively cutting them off from connections to western cities. Faced with no other option, the Central Railroad had to yield, eventually selling Vanderbilt a controlling interest. He proceeded to consolidate his dominance over rail traffic from New York City to Chicago. This conglomerate transformed the railroad industry by implementing standardized procedures and timetables, leading to increased efficiency and shorter travel and shipment times. In 1871, Vanderbilt financed the construction of a symbol of his empire, the Grand Central Depot. This terminal for the New York Central Railroad featured elevated platforms, a magnificent glass balloon roof spanning all the tracks, and exclusive boarding areas for passengers. In contrast to the prominent figures who succeeded him, such as Andrew Carnegie and John D. Rockefeller, Vanderbilt didn't possess extravagant estates, nor was he notably philanthropic during most of his life. In fact, his significant charitable act occurred late in his life in 1873, when he contributed $1 million to establish and sustain Vanderbilt University in Nashville, Tennessee. The opulent Vanderbilt mansions commonly associated with the Gilded Age, including the Breakers in Newport, Rhode Island, and the Biltmore in Asheville, North Carolina, were constructed by Vanderbilt's descendants. The Biltmore, a sprawling estate featuring 250 rooms, was built in the late 19th century by one of Vanderbilt's grandsons and stands as the largest privately owned residence in the United States today. Cornelius Vanderbilt passed away at the age of 82 on January 4, 1877, at his residence in Manhattan. He was laid to rest in Moravian Cemetery in New Dorp, Staten Island. The majority of his vast fortune, estimated at over $200 billion in today's valuation, was given to his son William. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment below.